Is Dracula Any Good? The movie directed by Luc Besson that's set to come out February 6th of this year. You're about to find out. Thanks to Pixel C Media, I was able to see this movie early. This will be my thoughts on it. The movie is actually about a prince who loses the love of his life and renounces God, but with that comes a curse where he becomes Dracula and searches centuries to be once again reunited with the love of his life. It actually sounds like a pretty good premise until you watch the movie. And I'm gonna try not to be mean about this because I actually do like Dracula. I like the Dracula story. But was this movie any good? Let me just start off with the pros. The pros is I do really like the cinematography in this movie. I really do. I think the premise also was very good at first. I will give them a nod for that. I think the premise is very good. I think different interpretations of the same story is always good, and especially within the horror category and the horror genre of movies, I feel like you can get away with that a little easier. And also, this story has a lot of room to where you can kind of interpret it in a different way. I think that's why the premise of this one specifically for this Dracula movie works so well because it's a different premise in the sense of like he loses someone that's very close to him that he's actually in love with. This is the first time I actually think, to my knowledge, seeing Dracula on the big screen of any sort of interpretation that we've gotten for the movies, that we see him actually romantically involved and in love with somebody. I also really do like the costumes. The movie setting takes place in 1480 AD, and I actually think the Victorian Middle Eastern, medieval, medieval time period that they set this in, they did a really good job with the costumes of the knights and the battle armor and all this stuff, and just having to make it look like this kind of medieval, gothic, kind of Transylvania looking place. I really think they did a really good job with the setting, the production design, costume design, hair and makeup. I think they really did a good job with that. I also do like the tone of this movie and how it doesn't waste any time to get right into the story. I really like a lot of that. I like movies. I like slow burners, but also if you can sense a movie having a lot of action in it, I rather for the action to start right away rather than for us to build up to the action and have this grandiose moment where that action takes place basically towards the end of the movie. I like movies that if it has action and it has a lot of violence and stuff like that, I like it to just get right into the nitty gritty. But this is where the good stuff ends because here comes the bad. With movies like this, you are always bound to have something not quite right, and this movie has a lot of it that is left to be desired. Number one, the acting was okay. I do feel like at times it was a little over the top, but then again, you have to be a little bit over the top where you're talking about medieval times and kind of portraying the Victorian era of history and all of that time stuff that happened back then. So I get that. But in some cases, it did take me out a little bit because I did feel like the dialogue kind of dragged on longer than it should have with certain scenes. And I think that's sometimes the actor's fault for, I think that's, it's a combination of the actor, but more so it's the writers. I feel like the story, the dialogue, certain scenes, the pace of the movie was off at times. I think that the movie could have used a lot more action, a lot more of Dracula using his powers, and a lot more of him, yeah, just using his powers and using, because there's some abilities in here that I didn't even know, like the character Dracula in the folklore of Dracula could use or had in that sense. Like I didn't know he had like a cologne or like a perfume that he could put on him to attract his victims and to make them fall deeply in love with him in like a sexual way, like almost like an erotic way. There were certain scenes in here where I was like, they could have like it was an interesting concept, but it just kind of looks silly in the grand scheme of things, and I think that probably wasn't the intention of the directors nor the writers in this movie. And also, speaking of the writing, this is where I get to like kind of the main big anticipus and antith and what the heck am I trying to say? The main crux is what I'm essentially trying to say. The main crux of why I think the movie is not as good is because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but I'll just say this. There's a certain scene that literally happens in the beginning of this movie that sets the groundwork for the rest of the movie and how the movie's supposed to go. And then you start to realize that um, there is no plot without this happening. But then again, the reason why the plot is the way it is almost done in a way where it's like that's not a valid reason because at the end of the day, that's your fault. you're the reason why all this is happening. I won't spoil it, but I will just say that there's a scene that happens in the beginning of this movie where it sets the groundwork for the rest of what this movie is going to be, and it sets a tone, and you're kind of going to look back at that scene like, well, that was your fault. You did that. So the fact that you're renouncing God, okay, all right. That was my literally my reaction. I just feel like from there it set like a just I don't know, bro. It just set like a bad tone for the movie because I feel like after that scene, the movie just went further down. The movie was still decent. I think it kind of redeems itself in the third act, especially with the big battle. But then like the supporting character in this movie, the priest, it almost like his role is trying to find the love of Dracula because he's in fear that the girl that there's a girl in this movie that like Dracula makes his new wife in the love of his life, but she's being used to then go find the real love of his life so that it I, even me talking about it right now, I really can't even process what the story was. But I mean, all in all, I think the movie kind of does a good job of wrapping up what it was trying to be in the third act. I think it kind of salvages itself a little bit. Do I think it's a good Dracula movie though? No. And if I had to give it a rating, at best I'm gonna give this a 2.5 out of 5. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Honestly, I just think it was a lot to be desired with this one. And as a person that loves horror, as a person that loves different interpretations, like I was saying, of the Dracula story being told on the big screen, I mean, you're talking to somebody who literally went to go see the voyage, the voyage of the last Demeter. That was one of the best Dracula stories I've ever seen tell. Like, and the fact that that was told from a standpoint of like a book, or it was like a prequel, kind of like epilogue, kind of beginning book of Dracula, was amazing. One of the best Dracula movies I've ever seen. This one, I can understand the premise, and I can appreciate the different story that they were trying to tell with it being like Dracula losing the love of his life and that whole thing. But I think ultimately this movie is just a lot to be desired, and it's just left to be interpreted for whatever how you want to interpret it. Maybe this scene happened and you interpret it that way, or this scene happens and you interpret it that way. It's slated to come out in February. Actually, it's February 6th that it's supposed to come out, so that's actually right around the corner. But if you want to go see it, more than happy to. I would urge you to go see it so you can formulate your own opinions about this, and then come back to this video and tell me what you thought about it. Did you like it or did you not like it? Share your thoughts, opinions, and reaction in the comment section. As always, I'm John Talks. This has been a great conversation about movies. Hope you come back for our next one. Like and follow for more, and I'll see you guys in the next update. Deuces.